What's up guys, my name is Lin Yun and in today's video I'm talking about 10 things I hate about Japan. So the first thing I hate about Japan is paperwork. Japan has so much paperwork. They love paperwork here. Every time you change your residence, you have to go to the ward office in your city to say you're moving to a particular place. And then you have to go to the ward office at your new city and then file all the paperwork saying that you have moved to this particular place. I have the worst luck when it comes to paperwork and administrative tasks. I have issues with setting up bank accounts. I have issues with going to immigration to renew my visa or change my visa status over. Ironically, the immigration office has very few people that can speak English there when they're dealing with foreigners all day, every day. I can get by most days with just everyday Japanese, but when it comes to complex tasks, things like your taxes, your pension, immigration matters, things that are complicated already in English is further compounded when you have the language barrier, especially when they're using Keigo. This is a higher level of Japanese. It's a more respectful form of Japanese that they use. So that's something that you don't learn when you're studying Japanese. My second point is that Japan is incredibly backwards. People have this impression that Japan is a technologically advanced country, but there's so many contradictions to that impression. First of all, flip phones are still a big deal here. I see people all the time talking on their flip phone and it really weirds me out. My old company, which I used to work for, fax machines was the primary form of communication between the head office and the schools. No email, faxes.
Read my fax! No! Please, no, I cannot be fired! I'm fired! Ah!
It was the most irritating thing. And then when it came to doing things like changing the fax rollover, that was just super frustrating. The phone would ring and faxes would come in during the lesson and just interrupt the flow of the lesson. Changing the ink ribbon was the biggest hassle. And then some schools even had fax machines so old that they had that thermal paper that came out in a long roll. So if you had several faxes that came in over the weekend or overnight, you're sitting there separating the pages one by one. And don't even get me started on Japanese websites. They are the most awful eyesores. They remind me of the 90s GeoCity pages. You remember that little stick man under construction? Like that. Leading on to my next point about backwards Japan is smoking. Smoking is still a big thing here. In Australia, I'm so used to having non-smoking in the restaurants, and here in Japan, you still have lots of restaurants that have smoking and non-smoking sections. That doesn't help. The smoke travels around within the restaurant and it absolutely stinks. And my next point after that is sexism is still incredibly rife in this country. It's incredibly difficult for women to rise in leadership roles here. So let's see, smoking, sexism. Japan is basically 1960s America. It's almost like something out of Mad Men. My next point is conformity. I mentioned in the 10 things I love about Japan, the sense of order that they have here. The flip side of that is the conformity that in Japan, there is only a certain way they can do things. There's no deviating from that way. There's no new ideas, you know, there's the notion that this is the way we've always done it, so why change it? In schools, children are taught to think a particular way. There's no encouragement there for free thinking and having an opinion. So when I ask my students what do they think of something, they freak out. They don't know what to say. They're not used to having an opinion on something. My next point is summer in Japan. It is the worst. I have never lived somewhere where the humidity is near on 100% all the time during summer. I am constantly sweating. In Japan, what they have is little towels to mop your brow because your face will always be covered in sweat after walking 5 minutes outside. The humidity here is absolutely insane. Moving on to my next point, for the most part, toilets in Japan are amazing. You've seen all of those computerized toilets that have seat warmers and have the bidets in them.
Welcome I am honored to accept your waste.
They're years ahead of us!
But you can also be confronted with the dreaded squat toilet in public bathrooms. They're something that I always avoid. In addition to that, a lot of the time in public toilets, there's no soap. So when you go to try and wash your hands, you don't have anything to disinfect your hands with. Really gross. I don't know why I'm doing this. My second last point is packaging. Japan loves packaging so much. It's so incredibly wasteful. You go to a shop, you buy a product, it's got all the packaging on it. A lot of sweets here and cookies are individually wrapped inside the packaging. There's just so much waste in this country as a result of all that packaging. And my last thing is when taxes aren't included in the price of items in shops or restaurants. A lot of the time you'll look at a restaurant menu or you'll look at the price tag and that's not the final price. There's the 8% consumption tax that they have here, which gets added on at the end. It's so frustrating not knowing that and having to get out your phone to do the maths. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Lin Yunt. This has been day 17 of Vader. Every day in April I'm making a video, so be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.